Hello and very welcome to this post recording of the session that I did at the API Days in Paris last week. It's always a bit interesting to do this without audience. And I prefer doing presentations when there's people to interact with. But I'll try to give you at least as good an experience as the people had in Paris. I think I'll take a little bit more time than originally I had at the slot. So hopefully that'll improve the quality a bit. So the presentation I'll be doing for you is about 4 topics. It's about AI, it's about API business documentation, it's about developer portals and content management systems, and then how to combine these to create a better developer experience or even a better business and a better strategic fit for your organization. And I started my presentation with this slide because I don't know if you're very perceptive. I don't know how big the screen is that you're watching this on, but when you go back, there's lots of things wrong with this picture. And this is AI generated. This was a ChatGPT model 4.0, I think, or well, one of those that I used. And as you can see, it's actually quite dyslexic. It has several of these words that it has added into the picture are basically nonsensical, and they're like this. I don't know if they're really hallucinations, but there's some problems with the text in this picture. So we're at this really interesting moment in time where there's some people that are saying like AI is fantastic. I'm just putting a timer to make sure that I don't go too much over time. So there's some people that are saying like AI is fantastic, it's the greatest thing ever, and there's other people that are saying like AI is horrible, it's the worst thing ever. And you have people that are saying both of these things at the same time. And I personally think, and I was talking about this with several people at the conference, I think, and a lot of people agree, that AI is neither the end and the best thing ever or the worst thing ever. It's somewhere in the middle, and actually it is a tool that you can use to do certain things. So the application that I am going to talk about is to use AI. When I'm saying AI in this specific case, I'm talking about large language models. Because that's the latest incarnation that is carrying the AI flag today. So I'll be talking about large language models and how to use them to generate business documentation from open API specifications, and why you might want to do that. But first, before I dive deeper in, who am I? I'm Kristof von Tomme. I'm the CEO of Pronovix, CEO and co-founder of Pronovix. We're a consultancy that's specialized in developer portals. And personally, I love experimenting with ecosystems. I do that both in the API world and technical writing, Drupal world, some aspects the open source world, and in my backyard, in like what you're seeing here on the pictures on the top. That's parasol mushroom, which is an edible mushroom that I planted. Yes, you can plant mushrooms. These are really, really impressive. You can't see it here, but they're huge and amazing. And then the one on the bottom is a honey mushroom, and that's not one that you would want to plant in your garden, but we got them for free because it's a parasitic mushroom that we have growing in our garden. But I've put them in mushroom gel. Now, if you're interested in any of these topics, be that API ecosystems and how to foster them through developer portals or API documentation, or anything else related to that, maybe go check out my podcast. I got the API Resilience podcast, where I talk about philosophical subjects surrounding the API landscape. Or if you're interested in the mushroom stories, you want to know more, feel free to reach out and connect me on LinkedIn. Always happy to chat and to have conversations with fellow API or mushroom enthusiasts. As I already said, our company Pronovix is a specialist in developer portals. We've been doing. We exist for a longer time. We exist 19 years, but the last. Oh, actually, it's 9 years now. Apidays Paris was our 9th anniversary of our Devportal specialization. We run a bunch of community efforts like the API the Docs conference series. We had several podcasts. If you're into developer portals and learning more about them, go and check out our website. We got a lot of resources. We also run the Devportal Awards, we had several sessions about this stuff at the API Days conference. We, as a company, we build developer portals with an open source content management system that can be either as a software as a service or as a code base that we provide to organizations for on-prem solutions. And that way we can help you, or we can let you steer your own roadmap, so you can actually build a valuable service with your APIs instead of just some technical solution, but like you can look for business value. And that's a little bit connected with what I want to talk about. Now, this talk really started from a conversation that I had with Marina and Liliana from L'Oréal, who did I think they actually did a presentation about experiments that they were already doing using generative AI to generate business documentation from their open API specs that their colleagues were creating. Liliana and Marina run, as part of Julia's team at L'Oréal, Julien Brun, run a really large API effort inside of L'Oréal. A lot of developers, a lot of APIs. And the problem they were running into was that developers don't always want to contribute like, a non-technical description of their APIs. So they had this problem where they would have a whole bunch of APIs, but they would have to go and try to find ways to describe those APIs and what they're actually doing from a business perspective. So they started experimenting with generative AI, and they were actually able to get really interesting output from that. And that was kind of like this thing that started this conversation, because I had asked them if they could do the why for generating business documentation, and then I would do follow-up. But in the end, they were not able to join at the conference. They've got a really important project that they're working on. And so in the end, I ended up doing the presentation without them. But if you're interested in this, you can always reach out to them. Now, but then first part, why do you need business documentation on a developer portal? So what we have seen as a dev portal consultancy in the last 9 years is that typically people that are trying to figure out how to build a developer portal do this whole exercise, come up with a requirements list. And typically, those requirements can be classified either as developer experience features or as operational maturity features. What I mean by that, developer experience features are things like try it out, self-service onboarding, good documentation, findability, discoverability, that kind of stuff that are making life of developers easier. And then operational maturity are things like automated API publishing from a code repository, key provisioning, any kind of automation you're doing to reduce the work that is necessary to either contribute APIs and their documentation, or facilitate the consumption of APIs and things like that. Those were typically the kind of questions that people come to us with. Those are really important, but there's like a big gap there, because typically they'll ask about these two topics, and then they'll say and one day, we will also want to do monetization. And that is a problem. Why is that a problem? we have seen over the years that bottom-up developer-led initiatives that are purely focusing on developers do not succeed. Or they might have success, but they don't have the big, amazing success, organizational changing success that I think most people want to be part of. Because without top-down executive support, after some initial time, developer programs typically, start losing funding. So what we have seen often happening is that organization comes with this requirement for building a developer portal, typically part of a larger API program. So it's kind of like the executives have decided that they want to become an API company. Now they're executing on this API strategy. And then that's fine for a couple of years, like 2-3 years. But then after 3 years or something, what we start seeing is that APIs now are being done to some extent, but there's not really a business connection. And as a result, they're no longer in the spotlight, and they start becoming less and less important. They just become a cost center. And if you've been working in enterprise before, cost centers get squeezed, and that's not a fun thing to be part of that. So we started thinking about like how can we change this dynamic, and how can we help our customers and the wider community to be more successful beyond just strategic API program success. And to do so, we came up with this model. It's a value compass for developer portals, which has 3 dimensions. First dimension is developer experience, those features that I was talking about earlier. First part, operational excellence, that's the other dimension. And then the third dimension, business alignment. And this is the one that I want to focus in a little bit, because that's a really important one if you want to have outstanding success with your API program. Now, don't get me wrong, you need all 3 dimensions to be successful, to have lasting success. If your developer experience is terrible because you don't have good documentation, or if there's somebody in your API program who needs to manually approve every single API request from the whole organization, or you have like some sort of a manual process where people are sending emails to approve API access, that's not going to lead to a scalable, lasting success. But the part that I would argue is even more important is this business alignment part, which is about first of all, like showing a business bright spot, something that is going to excite executives. Like, imagine your API program is going to be mentioned in your company's annual investor brochure. What kind of projects or what kind of API products might you be publishing to be able to succeed there? And then second step, after that initial success with these strategic bright spots, imagine that your API program is now a strategic part of your organization that is recognized by both people at the top and in the trenches, and your partners and your customers, as a key way that your business is doing business in the world. Then how is that actually helping? How is that actually being executed? And having those things, like first a bright spot and then lasting strategic success, that is, I think, the way that you can get a well-funded program where you don't need to worry about people starting to ask difficult questions about, why do you have so many developers working on this thing, or what is your program doing for my business? The problem with this is that business alignment is hard, and it is hard because it requires you to contextualize your API program into your business context. And every business, every industry, ideally, actually, really, even every business will have its own way of doing business alignment, because then APIs become part of your differentiation, and they help your company to be unique and to have a lasting strategic advantage derived from your APIs. And that this is, I think, the kind of success that I imagine all of us would like to enable. If you're an API program manager, at least, but even if you're working on a developer portal, I think this is what you really would like to have, because that's going to mean that what the work that you're doing is going to be there for the long term. So that's why business alignment is this missing ingredient that we've seen, and why it's so important, and why to get to not only developer efficiencies and marketing, developer marketing, and operational effectiveness and cost savings, but to also have strategic business value, you need to think about this business alignment, because that will get you the executive support, not only in the first 3 years that the API program is like the new shiny, but also in year 4, 5, 6, year 10, 20, lasting throughout your organization's lifetime, and maybe also your career. Okay, so that was reason one. So reason one, executive support. Reason two is caused by two big trends that are changing how people find information about your organization, and how content marketing is actually being executed. The first one is this shift from search engine optimization to generative engine optimization. Now, I personally hadn't heard of this term. Like I thought it was like AI EO or something like that, or or AIO. I had dubbed it, but then some colleagues told me that no, this is actually they're calling it Geo, which was for me. Anyway, generative engine optimization is what it's called. It's basically the equivalent of search engine optimization. So creating better content that is going to be picked up by generative engines, and then also be used to generate answers. Now, there's already a big degradation of visibility that's happening here, because in the past, people would be using a search engine and get like 10, 20, 30 search results they might scroll through, especially if it's something important. If it's less important, then maybe only one page, the front page. But people would go look through the articles that you created, and then use those to build an opinion about the topic that they're researching. Now, first of all, what has happened with generative engine with AI and AI search that is right now gaining in importance in the world, is that there's two things. One, only the 3, 4, 5 top results are being used to generate an answer, and this is already like a big shift, because it's not the 20 or 30 answers that people might be looking at for a really important topic, but like just the few top answers. Second, the answer that people are getting is an answer that's generated based on your content. So it's not so much about having your branding in front of people, but it's like how you talk about the subject that is important. And then if people's thinking is being shaped, if they believe and they agree with how you write about a topic, they might search further, and they might like click on a page and actually visit your content to actually get a brand impression. This is a huge shift that's really important. Second is that more and more people are doing voice search, because AI or LLMs allow us to do much better voice recognition, and so now you can use voice search to start asking things to an LLM, or even on your phone. Like I started using this not too long ago. That I just ask, I speak out the question, because it takes much less time than to write it down myself. Now, this causes a really interesting change, because as you're the spoken word is much easier to, it's much faster to do, and there's a different economy of the number of words that you're using. So typically, people, what's I wrote, I found this post where they were talking about how voice search becoming more dominant is causing people to ask more detailed questions, and that if you look at the traffic from voice search, you'll have more detailed questions, which means that you need more detailed content. Now, where I'm getting with all of this, both of these trends mean for search, people asking more detailed questions, and second, a generative engine optimization. Also, again, you need to be at the top of the results to leave an impression on people, on your customer or your other audiences. That means that you need to have more detailed content that is answering more narrow questions, so that you can capture some of that long tail traffic that is happening. Both of these require you to create more like deeper content with more information that is answering more specific questions about what your products are doing. And I also argue, and both of these are neologisms that I made up for this talk. So content depth and content proximity. Content proximity, I mean that your business documentation and your technical documentation perform better when they're closer together, because things like technical descriptions of how to use your APIs, or how to use the APIs of your products to solve a specific use case, that is much deeper and richer content that can help to provide some of that long tail content that we needed, as explained earlier. Also, like things like use cases is really good content marketing, because you have very dense keywords. You're answering about specific questions that people might have. It's any kind of technical terms that people might have picked up somewhere that they might be using in a search will appear in your use cases and your technical documentation. So it's important to start thinking about your technical documentation as a prime marketing asset, or prime marketing assets. And also, I was in a conversation. I was talking with a telecom customer, and I was asking, like, how well are your APIs selling? Like, or your sales team, are they already selling APIs today? What they told me was, well, actually, this is tricky, because salespeople in the telco sector are not IT technical necessarily, and because of that, they might be uncomfortable in talking about APIs. And that means that APIs, even if you've done all this investment in creating these differentiating assets, maybe they're not being utilized because your salespeople are afraid to talk about them and to get into uncomfortable conversations with IT technical people on the other side. So the third reason is that you need to help people explain the value of APIs, and that's another thing that you might be thinking about. Okay. Part two, and I am definitely making it a lot longer than at a conference, but I hope it's useful, and I can go a little bit deeper on topic. Part two: why use a CMS for your developer portal? We've talked a lot about this in the community, and we have some blog posts about this up on our website. Content management systems are typically useful when you need access control for your APIs. Like if you have certain APIs that you don't want to expose to people, like you're rolling out a set of APIs in a phased approach, and you're not sure yet if they're going to last. If you want to keep supporting them, maybe you don't want to expose them to all your customers, but only to like a small group of customers, or to partner network or something like that. You want to do workflows for the approval of documentation. You need a graphical user interface to enable marketing people, so non-developers, to contribute to your documentation. Don't make your marketing people edit stuff in Git. That's kind of scary. And to like improve SEO, content management systems can help with these things and a bunch of other things. But these are like four really important things that content management systems help with. And content management systems, in an essence, can enable organizations to collaboratively create better content. And maybe sometime soon, we might be let me just turn this phone off. Sorry about that. So content management systems might help us to collaborate with other people and robots and create this like Kantar-based authoring workflows. Part 3, creating business documentation with large language model. So coming to the meat of this talk. If you've ever tried this, if you just prompt a large language model to generate business documentation from an open API spec file, you actually get pretty decent results. This is this was the pre-prompt, and then that's the structure that it figured out that it would give, and then give the actual open API spec file, and you get something that non-developers are going to be inclined to read. So people with JSON blindness won't be scared by this stuff. And so as a first step, this might already be like a big improvement from only having your open API spec files. Now, we wanted to, like I told you that I was going to show some experiments. This is Janos, my colleague. I'm sorry, Janos, for using this picture, but I needed this layout to show how it does not work. This was a first attempt where we used a large language model to try to generate a page layout with images and text, like to make something like visually more attractive. And we asked an LM to generate JSON templates, but then that didn't work all that well. And I've read now also that LMs are not all that good at creating like nested outputs, and that you might have problems with that. But then when we asked, and I hope this is going to work, let's see. So when we asked an LM to fill out a structured template, that did work. So things like this, where let me just go back a little bit, like a bit more, where you have the icons and like a responsive page layout with details, even in a single shot prompt, you already get pretty decent results. And that was really impressive, I would say. And but that is only really the start, because I don't know if you're familiar with Tom Johnson. He's somebody from, well, he's really famous in the technical writer community. He's been doing an article series about prompt engineering and AI use cases in technical writing. And he works at Google, if I'm not mistaken. And for his daytime job, what he's been doing is basically using AI in a sort of collaborative stream of thought way, like where he will do an initial prompt and then take a follow-up, and basically create a sort of reasoning chain that helps him to achieve better outcomes faster using AI, but then as an individual. Now, what I believe that will be possible using a CMS and AI is that you have multiple people collaborating with potentially multiple AI, like with multiple models or multiple agents, to create high quality content faster in sort of collaborative way. And that's what I'm really excited about, because that will help us to create real value using large language models. Okay. Part 4, I want to still talk a little bit about Drupal content management system as an AI platform, because for those of you, I don't know if you're into the Drupal ecosystem, for those of you that are not, this is Dries Buitaert. He's the founder of the Drupal project. He, in his recent keynotes at our community conferences, he's been talking about a lot about AI and how he thinks that it's, how we can apply it in a content management system. These are my words, not his, but the way I imagine it is that AI, I keep saying AI, but actually really LLMs are kind of like the fifth element next to the traditional LAMP stack, like Linux, Apache, MySQL database, and PHP for a content management system. There's now this new component that we can use to do things that before we couldn't do. I know Drupal has these responsible AI principles like human in the loop, transparency, things that you can read here, that help to guide us towards like a good way of using these models to create good content out there in the world. And this is Jamie Abrams from Freely Give, a company we've been partnering with that has been working on an AI module for the Drupal community that is basically a sort of AI platform for to enable all of these AI capabilities inside of the Drupal content management ecosystem. And it does a bunch of really cool stuff. Like there's a large language model abstraction layer. There's a chat explorer. It's kind of like tried out for large language models inside of your content management system. You have automators that can do automated CMS actions, agents, both linear, so you can like create a chain, like a content type with fields where you like do step by step by step, or asynchronous where you have a Kanban-like UI where you can have actions being performed by LLMs or by agents and by humans in the same interface so that they can interact with each other. Super cool. And then also vector embedding, like for search and assistance, chats, of course, is one of the applications. But I put it last because I think that's the one I'm less excited about than all the other stuff. Or it's also important, but I think the others are more fundamentally important, I think. And so there's a lot of really interesting things happening inside of the Drupal ecosystem around this stuff. And then, and if you're building a developer portal, you might want to consider doing it with Drupal, especially if you need these content management capabilities. Last part is the bonus part. We've sponsored the Vertex module for Drupal. So we work together with Freely Give to get that built so that it would integrate well with the AI ecosystem. And that enables a couple of interesting things because the Google models have a really, really large context. And that can be interesting for like migrations. It might be interesting for developer portals also. Like if you want to migrate content from some legacy system into your developer portal. And then there's a couple of other things like video recognition and screenshots that you can do with these models that previously, that with other LLMs today are harder to do. And we've also been doing some hackathons at the company. Like, for example, this is an AI product catalog where just like you would have an API product catalog, we have now AI products that are being exposed in a catalog next to APIs. And these are some play examples. But the idea is that you could create a page in a catalog where people can go and find out which ones they want to interact with. You can use role-based access control on that. So like if you want to limit who gets access to what model, like really expensive models, you need approval flows or something like that. And then you can build, try it out capabilities using some of the things I talked about earlier, monetization, chargebacks, all of these things using the developer portal ecosystem that you might already be looking at or that you might already have. And and that's the end of my presentation. If you want to hear more, you can, you can't come visit us at the booth because that was last week, but you can still sign up for our newsletter or reach out to me. I'm Kristof from Tomme. You can look me up on LinkedIn. That's where it's easiest to catch me. And that rests me to finally, I still want to thank all of you for listening till the end, which was quite a bit longer than 20 minutes, and for your general interest in the API, the docs, the API, and all these other communities, that you're interested in those communities. Thank you very much.